You won't believe what destroyed Russia's $500 million state-of-the-art air defense system. It wasn't a missile, it wasn't a fighter jet. It was wooden drones, assembled in a kitchen cabinet workshop. At 3:47 a.m., June 2025, in Crimea, a Russian S-400 radar dish roared like a wild beast, sweeping the skies with electromagnetic waves so powerful they could roast a turkey from 10 kilometers away. But in that very moment, the massive dish unknowingly signed its own death warrant. Over the next 15 minutes, 17 Ukrainian drive ones would reduce that $500 million air defense system to a pile of twisted metal, nothing more than a scorched paperweight in the ashes of arrogance. The lead UAV, a Beaver, the one you're looking at, had been flying non-stop for over 2 hours by this point, burning through 12 liters of fuel. Now, it had exactly 19 minutes left to hunt for its target, 2 minutes to strike, and a final 2 minutes to self-destruct if anything went wrong. There was zero room for error. No plan B. The margin of error? Absolutely zero. The entire formation was spread out across a 3-kilometer front, flying low at exactly 50 meters just beneath the radar horizon, where the Earth's curvature limits detection range to 25 kilometers at best. Every passing second was a gamble with death. But at their current speed, they weren't flying, they were gliding silently, like airborne blades slicing through the suffocating air of the war zone, ready to sever the lifeblood of Russia's defenses with a single surgical strike. Have you ever tried hiding behind the couch to avoid someone's gaze? Now imagine that, but on a battlefield scale. These drones are flying at exactly 50 meters, so low they stay beneath the sweep of Russian radar. Not because the radar is weak, but because physics won't let it see past the curve of the Earth. I mean, do you see the irony in that? A radar system can track ballistic missiles in space, but it's completely blind to targets skimming the ground. Why? Because light doesn't bend to human will. Because radar waves can't beat the 25-kilometer limit at this altitude. Think about it if you were the attacker. Would you fly high, fast, and easily detected? Or would you glide low like a ghost below the radar's reach? Ukraine's drones chose the second path. And right now, they're creeping forward like blades about to slash the throat of Russia's defenses. Do you think the radar will react in time? Do you think a billion-dollar system can bow fast enough to a simple truth? Radar can't see through the ground? If you're starting to realize that war is no longer about who's stronger but who's smarter, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next sharp breakdown. Can you guess what those incoming scythes of death are made of? Not ultra-light carbon fiber, not some fancy stealth material, just plywood. That's right, the AQ-400 drone crates you're seeing were assembled in workshops that used to make kitchen cabinets by workers who once handled hinges and corner brackets. I mean, isn't it ironic? The same material that once held your plates is now carrying a 32-kilogram warhead. Each drone costs just $15,000. Throw in another $30,000 for the guidance system, and that's all it takes to wipe out a pillar of Russia's air defense. The real question is, what defines true power, the price tag or the purpose? If 17 drones costing $425,000 can destroy a system worth $500 million, then clearly, war no longer belongs to the wealthy. Take a closer look. You're witnessing the rise of intellect, of asymmetry, of warfare led by garages. This isn't a contest of who can shoot farther anymore. It's about who can think smarter and faster, second by second. Do you think the radar empire knows it's about to be shredded by a flying kitchen cabinet? What keeps a drone alive in the GPS-jamming hellscape of Crimea? It's not magic, it's a triple-layered navigation system, woven together like a combat nervous system. The first layer? A $12 commercial GPS chip you can grab off Alibaba. But since 2022, Crimea has been an electronic nightmare. The jamming is so intense, even birds could lose their sense of direction. So what about the second layer? That's where accelerometers and gyroscopes come in like a brain inside the body, remembering every tilt, every tiny deviation. Every movement the drone makes is encoded, measured, and corrected in real time. But the real secret lies in the third layer, electronic vision. Each drone carries machine eyes that constantly compare the terrain below with stored satellite imagery. You can jam the signal, but you can't hide a mountain. You can shut off the radar, but you can't erase the ground itself. See the point? Russia might blind the satellites, but it can't blind the eyes. Ever wonder, when a drone flies overhead, it's not just flying, it's watching you, and remembering exactly where you stood, second by second? This isn't just technology. This is weaponized memory. (4:15). The swarm activates tiered attack mode. 7 drones climb to 80 meters, still below most radar coverage, but high enough to dive like kinetic drills. 5 stay at 50 meters. Another 5 drop to 30, forming a triple blade formation, stretched across a 3-kilometer front, slicing straight toward the heart of the S-400 system. Do you know what that means? The defenders now have to split their brains in 2, divide their vision by 4, and stretch 6 radar systems just to track 3 layers of death, each coming from a different dimension. Pilots have a name for this: vertical spread using altitude to overload perception. On the other end, Russian radars keep spinning, still convinced the enemy only comes from above. But no, the threat is now coming from all directions low, from the flanks, and skimming the ground. Do you really think a system built to stop ballistic missiles can react in time to 17 plywood UAVs flying in a spoke formation? The answer is coming meter by meter, second by second, at 48 meters per second, with an intention that cannot be negotiated. On paper, the S-400 battery near Zikoy is untouchable. The Gravestone 92N2E radar spins every 12 seconds like the rotating pillar of a war god. The Big Bird 91N6E radar scans deep into space, hunting high-altitude threats. 4 launchers carry 16 missiles, and 2 Panzer S-1 units stand ready to shred any intruder. But do you see the irony? Perfection in theory crumbles before asymmetric reality. Big Bird can only detect objects flying above 100 meters. The incoming UAVs, they're gliding in at 50 meters, which means, to the radar, they simply don't exist. And the Panzer? That system can track and engage 3-4 targets at once. Now it's staring down 17 drones, sweeping in on a 90-degree arc. Let's do some quick math. Each drone takes 12 seconds to process. 17 drones? That's 204 seconds. Actual time left? Just 98 seconds. Can you solve that equation? If not, then picture this. An electronic tsunami rising fast, while Russia's defense systems are still scratching their heads, and death is closing in at 48 meters per second. When the operators finally spotted tiny dots at 32 kilometers out, the Panzer system immediately shifted to combat mode. But this wasn't target practice. This was a brutal equation of time, speed, and physics. At 48 meters per second, the drones would reach their target from 5 kilometers away in just 104 seconds. A single 57 E6 missile takes 2 seconds to lock on, 1 second to fire, 6 to 8 seconds to reach the target, and another 2 seconds to confirm a kill, totaling 11 to 13 seconds per drone, under perfect conditions. Feel the pressure yet? With 17 targets, they'd need at least 204 seconds to respond, but they only had 98. Not enough time to think, not enough time to shoot, not even enough time to pray. The first missile launches, screaming through the air at Mach 3, and races past its target, but the sensors don't pick it up. The drone's radar cross-section is just 0.05 square meters, too small, too low. The first shot misses. The operator switches to manual mode, eyes locked into the optical scope. But now, death isn't coming one at a time. It's coming as a swarm, and the clock waits for no one. The Big Bird 91N6E radar, the massive eye of the S-400 system, can spot a baseball from 100 kilometers away, yet it's completely blind to anything flying below 100 meters. And that's exactly the altitude of the incoming drones. Can you hear the irony in the hum of its spinning antenna? A multi-million-dollar machine that sees beyond the horizon, yet can't detect the threat right at its feet. This isn't a design flaw. It's a fatal blind spot where physics stops being an ally to giants. When the 92N2E radar could no longer provide target coordinates, the 5P85TE2 launchers became nothing more than expensive toys sitting in a field. Without targeting data, those $1.5 million missiles were left staring at the sky, firing on nothing but hope. And you know this. In war, hope doesn't guide anything. As the final signal was transmitted, 248 N6E missiles launched, screaming like a last desperate cry, hurtling straight into the void. No radar lock, no feedback, no target. Those 2 missiles self-destructed in the sky, $3 million gone in a trail of gray smoke. Can you hear that sound? That's the sound of a defense system firing into emptiness, the echo of an empire with nothing left to shield itself. In that moment, the most advanced technology stood exposed, not because it wasn't powerful enough, but because it could no longer see the enemy. And when you can't see, you can't survive. This wasn't a technical glitch. This was a verdict handed down by reality. .47, 12 remaining drones slammed into the S-400 system like thinking bullets, each from a different angle, across 3 altitude layers, 7 attack vectors, a death matrix too fast to track. The Panzer systems switched to autocannons, 30mm rounds tearing through the air in a frenzy of desperation, but it was already too late. Have you ever seen a defense system that knows its fate, yet has no choice but to watch it unfold? They saw it. They calculated it. They felt it coming, but they couldn't stop it. That's not a defeat. That's a death sentence written in seconds. "4 hours, 47 minutes, and 0 seconds, Beaver 1 hits the target. A 20-kilogram shaped charge cone detonates, turning 3mm of copper into a Mach 23 plasma jet, slicing through the 92 N2E radar like a hot knife through butter. 37 seconds later, Beaver 7 slams into the backup radar just as it's turning to scan the opposite direction. 2 strikes from opposite sides, 2 cuts as precise as surgery. Can you hear it? That's the sound of metal screaming, wires melting, and the pride of Russian engineering crashing to the ground like a paralyzed satellite dish. In less than 4 minutes, the battlefield shifted from tense silence to irreversible chaos. The pride of Russian air defense, the S-400 system, armed with millions in radar and missiles, was reduced to ashes by a fleet of low-cost drones, built in ordinary garages. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was the aftershock of disbelief. Operators stood frozen, staring at darkened screens, paralyzed sensors, and a sky once shielded now ruthlessly torn open. This wasn't just a tactical defeat, it was a rewrite of modern warfare itself, where intelligence outmaneuvers budgets and plywood beats precision tech. What happened that night wasn't a glitch, it was a flash glimpse of the future. Faster, more asymmetric, and far more ruthless. A lightning-fast drone strike shook the Russian base, but it was the chain of explosions afterward that completely shattered their entire system. If you want to keep watching strikes that leave the enemy stunned, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel now.